Good morning, everyone. It's March 2nd, and this is the Planning, Housing, Economic Development Committee. And we are meeting today to conduct reviews on the capital budget. And we'll be taking up the proposed capital budget, capital improvements program for Department of Parks, Recreation, and then the Conservation of Natural Resources, Agricultural Land Preservation item. So sort of imagining the parks component will take about an hour, and then we'll proceed into the rest, but we'll see how it goes. So Pam's prepared a helpful packet that reviews, Pamela Dunn, all of this, and I know we're joined by our Parks Department. I don't know that there's a need for any preliminary comments. Councilmember Dwando is on. His camera's not on, but he's on the meeting with us, and we can proceed into the packet. Pam.
Hey, good morning, everyone. So I'm going to start into the packet. If my connection seems insufficient, I'll turn the video off. I'm in the office today, but we've been having some trouble in the COB with our connection. But with that, I will go ahead and get started. The CIP for the Parks Department, their request for the FY23 through 28 CIP is $265 million, which is an increase of $25.4 million over their currently amended FY21 through 26 CIP. The county executive recommended a Mncppc budget of $254.5 million, which is a 6.2% increase from the previously approved budget. However, a significant portion of that increase, $8.8 million of it, reflect work that the commission would do on behalf of the county for the MS4 permits. So that the executive's budget is still an increase. It's an increase of 2.5% over their current budget, but is 7.3% less than what the Parks Department requested.
Okay, so just in sec, to summarize there, Parks Department has given us a recommendation for all of the work that they'd like to do in the parks program. That's big regional parks and neighborhood parks, playgrounds, trails, everything. And the amount of funding that the executive has recommended is a substantial reduction for all that work from what they had requested. And so that's really unfortunate. I don't quite understand why this is a repeated pattern with the executive underfunding the Parks Department. And, we keep standing up for parks here at the council, and we'll continue doing our best, but certainly is putting us in a tough position year after year. And, anyway, so it's very frustrating. Okay, so 7%, that's where we're starting from here, 7% reduction versus the requested programs. Executive put a whole new program into the parks budget, but didn't increase their resources in his recommendation to match. So they had to just suddenly fit that in, which will require deferring a number of parks projects in order to do that. So that's the reality we're going to be grappling with here. So back to you, Pam.
So if you turn to the second page of the staff report, I want to give you just a brief overview of the recommendations from the executive, but we're going to cover them in more detail as we go through the packet, rather than to get into those details now. And they are basically the executive had just a handful of recommendations that were specific, not just the general recommendation for a budget amount. And as I already mentioned, the first one had to do with the stream protection, stream valley protection PDF, that capital project, and has recommended adding $8.8 million to that for the county's MS4 work that the Parks Department will do. The second recommendation involved urban park elements, and this was a recommendation by the executive to delay some Mncppc bond funding, $500,000 worth of it, from FY23 to FY25. And this really had to do with the Norwood Dog Park, and to provide more time for a evaluation of alternative sites and to consider community comments. And again, we can get into that when we actually get to the Urban Park Elements PDF as part of the staff report. The next was a recommendation by the exec to delay $500,000 in to delay $100,000 or more than that in PPC bonds from FY25, a portion of that into FY26 and another portion into FY27. So that's the big picture. The exec did make one last comment, which was under current revenue, he's requesting to make sure that the facility planning for the Long Branch Area Parks Initiative remains in the facility planning for non-local parks.
Say that again, Pam. I'm sorry. I'm having a little trouble. As you said, the council's broadband capacity is not optimal. And so there's probably a lot of people in the building today and something's going on. So you're going in and out a little bit, but
okay.
Say it again, please. The
last point from the county executive was that there is some current revenue funding in FY24 that is directed to the Long Branch Area Parks Initiative, and that funding should remain. That if in fact, and what we'll talk about later is the executive's reconciliation PDF, which basically is a PDF that's put together that recognizes there's a gap in funding between what the Parks Department requests and what the county executive recommends. And in looking at how to make those adjustments, the exec was recommending that the Long Branch Parks Initiative remain something that is funded with current revenue in FY24. So the way the staff report is written and the way we can organize our review for you today is we typically go through, if there's any new projects, we go through what are changes to existing capital projects. So that's increases in funding, changes in timing, things that are significant changes to projects. We have quite a few of those, but some are very, so we'll go through those. I can stop when there are questions. The third section is really what we almost think of as the consent. It is projects that the committee and the council have seen before. They've funded at a certain level. Parks Department is requesting only 2 additional years of funding because we have a new CIP at the same level of funding as the previous years. So it's not a significant change. They're typically all ongoing projects. So it's just a continuation at the same funding level for 2 more years. All of that is in the packet though. If you want to, an accounting of it, it's all there. The next section just lists the projects that are getting closed out or are no longer being funded or have funding beyond the 6 years. And then the very last section that we cover really is about the affordability PDF. So how do we have a conversation? Does the committee make decisions on what to recommend for funding for parks when the requested budget is one thing and the CE's recommendation is another? So with that, we'll jump into new projects. And there's really only one. It's called Park Acquisitions, and it's really just a combination of 2 existing. We have a acquisitions for local parks and an acquisition for non-local parks, PDS, 2 separate. What combining them will do, it provides some flexibility in use of funding sources. Program open space funding, current revenue funding, those are things that can be used to fund either a local park or a non-local park acquisition. And by combining these into just one place, that makes that simpler. There in the past has been sometimes the need for parks to request that some of the funds get moved from one to the other if an opportunity arises and there's not enough funding. The one thing is that the bond funding is different. So Mncppc bonds fund local parks, GO bonds fund non-local parks, and there just still has to be an accounting of that within the PDF on how those funds are used to fund those types of facilities moving forward.
Okay, so Pam, we're on page 4, and you're talking about the combination of the local and non-local parks item, and you're noting that they could be combined, but the actual funding sources and expenditures need to be separately accounted for all the same.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there any questions or comments on that, committee?
All set.
Okay. So if we turn to the projects that have changed, the first 2 we just really discussed. They are the acquisition local and non-local parks, which we've just decided, makes sense to close those out and move to one PDF. The next is the ball fields initiative. And so what Parks has requested is really just level funding for 2 more years. So typically this would go under consent. The only reason I've pulled it out and put it here for discussion is just to make a note, a committee, which is in doing so in the later years of what you currently funded for ball fields, 300,000 of it per year comes from CUP funding. The remaining comes from GO bonds. And for FY 21 and 22, the executive had recommended that rather than use CUP funding due to the impacts of COVID-19 on the facilities and the use of those facilities, the Ball Fields Initiative was funded fully through GO bonds. So the question before the committee is, typically conversations related to CUP are held during the operating budget. You could wait, have this discussion about the ability to do CUP funding, or ask OMB to weigh in about the availability of CUP funding to support the park's request, just 2 level years of funding, or to make a recommendation to move to GO bond funding for just 2 more years.
Okay, so if we wanted to make the recommendation to not rely on CUP revenue, that would be an additional $300,000 moved out of the CUP revenue into GO bonds. So we would be adding $300,000 each year. Is that correct?
Correct. The recommendation would be just to do it for 2 more until you get to the next CIP.
Okay, just 2 years worth, not 6 years worth. Okay, let's hear from Mary Beck. Oh, sorry. You're going to have to. Oh, can you start over again?
Sure. At this time, it's looking like the CUP fund balance situation is okay enough to be able to accommodate the previously approved funding level. So I think for now, you're okay to just approve it as it has been, unless you choose to substitute bonds. But I think it's probably okay the way it's been.
Okay. Any comments from, all right, Councilmember Friesen.
Yeah, so I think it'd just be helpful to understand if we decided to recommend that this be, continued in, currently it's in GO bond because of the issues with county executive recommendation is to move it back to how it had traditionally been funded through. There's a lot of feedback. I don't know.
Yeah. Mary Beck, maybe you could hit mute. It might have been coming when you. And can we clarify to Councilmember Friesen's question? Is it the 2? Are we only talking about the 300,000 that? Go back to the numbers, please, as to what.
I just want to clarify. It's $300,000. Historically, it comes out of CUP. We've had challenges with CUP revenue, obviously, given the pandemic. It was funded through GO bonds for FY 21 and 22. The staff recommendation here is to continue the GO bonds for 23 and 24 for just 2 more years as kind of an off-ramp, so to speak. Executive staff is saying there actually is sufficient resources available within CUP, and we actually could fund it through that. And so I'm just trying to get clarification that everybody agrees to that, both from Ms. Beck and Ms. Yao and Ms. Dunn.
I just wanted to raise that again, if you're making a decision related to the CUP operating budget, that's actually within the ENC committee's jurisdiction. So I just wanted to get that on, I mean, certainly tentatively that could be the recommendation of the committee, but it will need to be, I guess, ratified by the ENC committee.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We have somebody on the ENC committee here, but not a quorum necessarily. I would rather.
I'd also, I don't mean to interrupt you, Councilmember, but the proposal is for the parks to take on these expenses. So I don't know why the ENC committee would object to that.
Yeah, I would rather us recommend that it be included in GO, and if ENC wants to, if ENC, if there's sufficient resources available during that discussion, then we can reconcile it at the end. We don't have to fund it in both, but that way we don't have to come back to a decision point. We will have already made it, and then full council can kind of pick which bucket based, if 2 committees say that it's okay to go and, recommend, we can sort it out then. I think that would be the most prudent. We don't have the CUP budget analyst here. We don't have, we're not sitting as the ENC committee. To me, it would be most prudent to do it that way personally.
and I'll clarify, it's not proposing the Parks bonds would pay for it. We're proposing the GO bonds would pay for it. Yeah, okay. So we would, okay.
Yeah, I would
Casey?
just say recommend that it go into GO bonds subject to the conversation at ENC related to CUP resources, and then allow that conversation to take place. If colleagues, I'd be interested to hear what the committee member believes, but yeah.
I'm fine with that. I don't think there'd be an issue, but we should have the conversation. But I'd be fine with that.
Could we have a word on this?
Yeah.
It seems to us it has been the direction of the Fed committee and the council for several years now that this money should come out of CUP if it's available. The only reason that is in any way in controversy or has been is because CUP has said, hey, we don't have the revenue. And OMB has said, yeah, we're not really sure if they have the revenue. Today, they're saying they have the revenue. So it seems to us that you ought to just give us the revenue, because that allows us to not have to compete for GO bonds to get these ball fields fixed up. Now, if you want to defer it for some reason, I would suggest you ask the ICB to weigh in this, which is the board that oversees the joint, use of collection and allocation of this money. It's actually, that in effect, the ICB plays in some ways an oversight role of CUP. I don't want to get too far down the bureaucratic complexity of it, but what I'm suggesting is I think the money's there, and in the past you've told us if the money's there, you should use it from CUP. And if for some reason you want to defer that decision, I'm not sure why, but at least ask ICB to weigh in on what they think about that.
Yeah, I think we're saying essentially the same thing, just to be clear. My point is allow for the GO bonds if there is an issue, so that we don't have to come back for an additional decision point. If ENC makes a decision and says there isn't resources available at some point, then we would have to come back as a committee on the GO bond. I mean, it's a little clunky how this is. If it comes out of GO bonds, it's a Fed decision, and if it comes out of CUP, it's an ENC decision. Maybe we need to sort that out later. I was only suggesting that this would avoid, and I think Ms. Yao was nodding in acknowledgement, this would avoid the committee, which is clearly making its viewpoint known here, would have to come back to meet as part of the deliberation over the operating budget or the capital budget on this particular decision point, which seems unnecessary.
Okay, but the decision would be the executive's recommendation, but if there isn't funding available, then the fallback would be bonds.
Right.
That makes sense to me.
Agreed.
We wouldn't have to come back to meet to say that. The point is, we want this funded. The preference is the way the county executive has suggested it. If for whatever reason there continues to be an issue, which there have been in the past, we should maintain the level of effort that we have. That's my suggested recommendation.
And I think the bigger point here that Casey's making is that a lot of the revenue that CUP has is from field permitting, and it makes sense for CUP to contribute to field infrastructure. Vivian's shaking her head.
Sorry, but the CUP fund balance, I don't think comes from the field permitting. The revenues they get from field permitting are pretty minimal. But again, because they're carrying a fund balance, that's why we were using the revenues to support the fields.
Okay.
Well, that's why we're asking the ICB to weigh in, because that's just not accurate. The huge amount of this fund balance is field money. Well, it just is. And if you doubt me, you should ask ICB.
All right.
Yeah,
Sounds like we've got.
We can certainly ask ICB, but that's not my understanding.
We should not be making a decision that affects CUP. They're not even here, So we can find out the information. I think we agree we want to fund the ball fields. If there is money, we can fund them as suggested. But if not, we should do GO. I think we can still do the same thing we're proposing, but we should have that conversation and get that information, which we can do in ENC as well.
Agree. That's all the suggestion here was. I think that there is consensus, and somehow we're still have found some level of conflict, which I'm not sure why, but I think we all are in agreement here, at least on the path forward.
And if you could please follow up Casey and Vivian, there's no opinion here. These are just facts. So let's find out what those facts are.
Yes, Mike will be in touch with Vivian later today.
Yeah, and that is behind our recommendation for the ICB in a very transparent way to get numbers in front of them. Numbers don't lie about the health of the fund, what the fund balance is, what the capacity is to fund fields. One more thing I want to throw out there is that we had this program funded at $600,000 a year at one point. And when the CUP fund balance was in trouble and we had to go to GO bonds, we cut it in half and went to $300,000 a year. So,
oh, really? So there's actually a reduction of revenue.
We're not progressing at the same pace we had hoped to. And the reason we kept it at $300 a year with the CUP revenue was the uncertainty of that fund to fund it. But our enterprise fund has bounced back. I just reviewed our projections yesterday. We're in good health. I do not know what the health of the CUP fund is, but I think that's the ICB's role, to have the numbers in front of them and give you a point of view about the health of that fund.
Well, I'm not pleased to hear that we are now doing less for ball fields than we used to. So I think
it has even more serious implications, because stretching out the schedule for which we can renovate these fields means we're already running into fields like, as you're aware, Eastern Middle School that we renovated 20 years ago, and we need to do it again. So it's not just that we're stretching out the schedule, we're now getting caught at the back end of projects that we did a long time ago that now need a new renovation. And
so would my colleagues join me in saying, let's add 300,000 for these 2 years in GO bonds and make a recommendation to the E&C committee to support that, as well as designating 300,000 from the CUP, fund balance, so that we're back to our former level of effort.
Yeah, if I could chime in, I want to support the additional funding for sure in GO bonds. I'm just hesitant to be making recommendations to my other committee without the information. We're saying that the facts that are at stake here. So I would just like to make the first half of that, but I agree. I talked to Mike about East Silver Spring, which is no one should be playing on that field. Eastern's in a similar boat, so we have to speed this up. But that would be my request to your request.
Well, okay. All right.
So now what we're saying is 300,000 over 2 years for GO bonds, and make clear that that is not a replacement but a supplement, and allow E&C to make their own decision.
And we're encouraging, maybe we could do it as a 2 to 0 to 1, an abstention or something, to the E&C committee. It's just a recommendation to the E&C committee that they add funding for. And I hear Councilmember Giuano
why don't I recommend, rather than it be a formal committee action, because I don't think we're putting Councilmember Giuano in here. Why don't you and I separately send a memo, just a brief memo to the E&C committee, so that Councilmember Giuano doesn't have to send a memo to himself, which is odd. And you and I can send a memo saying we did this in our committee, and encourage you to move forward with the executive's recommendation, so that we can maintain the commitment that this council has made on ball fields, which is a shared priority.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I will send you a memo, Councilmember Freeze, and then we'll both send. All right, let's do that.
All right, sounds good. I'm just trying to land this plane. I feel like we're mostly in agreement here, and we spent a lot of time arguing.
We are. Councilmember Giuano is just noting that he wants to see more information, which I certainly understand. So, okay. Good. So we're trying the big goal. I think we're all in agreement about. That's what's really, frankly, more important. That we want to see the ball fields return to its previous level of effort. That's what matters. So, okay, we're all in agreement about that, right? All right. Thumbs up. Okay. And I wanted to raise are we done with? I'm not done with ball fields because I wanted to raise a ball fields opportunity. Pam. Okay, back to you, Pam.
I just like a quick just summary of what you just decided, which is, the request.
Good luck, Pam. Good luck.
We'll send you a memo.
300,000 in CUP and the rest in geo bonds. What the committee is recommending is they agree to that. They're hoping that that is approved by the E&C committee as well when they talk about CUP. But they would also like to add in another $300,000 for 2 years in geo bonds to get back to some earlier funding that was provided to ball fields.
And I think, I guess maybe a broader articulation here would be 600,000 used to be the CUP contribution. And we think that that's a level of effort that's necessary. And so we think perhaps CUP doesn't have those resources right now. But, you know, the big picture here is we want to maintain a high level of effort. And so we're looking for somewhat short-term solutions about how that could be funded. Now, if it turned out that CUP had 600,000 and we didn't need to do the geo bonding, you know, that could be great too. But I think that's the bigger point is we want to see how to get to the previous level of effort.
Okay, I got it now. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
If I could just, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the sensitivity to my role on E&C, and just to Director Riley, this is, we're going to support it either way, but in those, to the point that Chair Anderson brought up about the old field, obviously the fields that need it now that have not been in the cycle, but the older fields that are really bad now too, is there a prioritization? Because I'm sure they're not all equal, right? You know, some 20-year-old fields don't get as much use as others. And you know, and I sent you this pictures of East Silver Spring. I know about Eastern. There's got to be some that are really, really bad. So I would just ask that as part of your process, you assess that and see if there's a way to work some of those in as we head into, you know, hopefully we get this done. But I just wanted to flag that since we're talking about it right now.
Absolutely, we will. And, you know, just to recap, there's still some elementary schools left that we have never touched that are still under the MCPS maintenance program, which MCPS will acknowledge is pretty much non-existent reactive maintenance. So we need to finish those up so that we have all the elementaries, and then we will assess all of the fields that haven't been touched in the last 20 years. We'll look at utilization, we'll look at equity focus areas, we'll look at field conditions, and then we'll have to go back and start renovating those again in priority order. And of course, our technology, our methodology, our knowledge, our equipment is vastly superior today to what it was 20 years ago. So when we go back and renovate those fields, hopefully we'll get them in good shape and be able to keep them that way.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I wanted to just put on the table to initiate here Emory Grove and work towards a PDF that would be funded from existing, you know, ball fields and other sources with parks, which is the restoration of a quality baseball field at Emory Grove, which was once the centerpiece of the Negro Leagues in Montgomery County, and was a ball field that people came to from all over the region. It was a lighted field. It was one of the only lighted baseball fields, and it was the only one, I believe, that black baseball teams had access to. And so it was a jewel in the athletic or the baseball access program. And that field has sort of, you know, fallen out of use and repair as baseball. But there's an opportunity here to do something very interesting. You know, not trying to overdo it here and do something we don't have the resources to make happen, but to fund a restoration of a quality baseball field there, along with some historical interpretation. And you know, the vision here is a really great community field that teams use, and when they're there, they're actually getting some exposure to the history of our county and the history of black baseball and the history of that community. And I know that this is also going to be somewhat, well, it is a big part of the Emory Grove master plan and development process that's upcoming. And, all the parties that we've talked to who are involved with that are very, very excited about the possibilities of the baseball field here. So I think this would be a starting point. This, what we're envisioning here is a more, significant step forward to do a quality baseball experience. If in the course of the broader community master planning process, there is support for maybe buying one of the houses that's near there and expanding it, then we could go in that direction. There's an MCPS site, nearby that could be added to it. Like, you could do more, but I wanted to at least just start with the idea of let's reestablish that field as a great baseball field and add some historical interpretation. And let's create a PDF so that it's visible, but funded from, sources that would be going to ball fields anyway. So we're not seeking to, it's just directing how our ball field resources might be used. So I wanted to put that on the table for my colleagues and ask Chair Anderson any feedback he might have on that. Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm totally supportive of the project and the idea at Emory Grove. I think it's important. I've been involved in a lot of conversations as well, as I know you have, and several colleagues, including the council president, have. I'm just wondering, we just added a bunch of money to ball fields. I think directing parks to move in this direction is important. I'm just not sure mechanically how we have a PDF of funds we just allocated somewhere else. So if the goal is to utilize the additional funding that we just provided for ball fields and to make this part of this effort, which I think it ought to be, which makes sense to me, then I just think directing, we're expressing our interest in getting a commitment here that will be part of that effort would be important. I'm just not sure how mechanically we create a new PDF and use funds from somewhere else, unless it's a PDF with zero on it, which I'm not sure is what we're looking for. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that.
Great question, and I think let's talk it through here. I think part of my objective here is, someone once told me long ago, if it's not written down on paper, it doesn't exist. And I would like to have something written down on paper that is visible and transparent and gives everybody and the stakeholders something to look at, and then there's accountability. The revenue source, could be designated as, for example, the ball fields initiative. But great question. Let's go to Chair Anderson and his team for any feedback there.
Yeah, so I think we can accommodate, whatever structure bureaucratically or on paper you like, but we need a little bit of time to figure out how to, what would the numbers be in that PDF? What would what other PDFs would we move money out of? So my suggestion is, if that's the direction you want to go, make the committee recommendation, but give us until full council to give you a proposal of how to, write that up and embody that in our budget documents, the PDFs themselves. And the only other thing I'd say is, and I don't think this is where you're going, but I just want to make sure everybody's expectations are realistic here. We do believe that it's possible to make this a signature facility, to add some amenities, to memorialize and document the Negro League baseball history, all the things you said. It won't be a $5 million, $10 million project. It's going to be a more modest in terms of dollars, but we think that we can make this a better facility and accomplish the goals that you're setting out. So I just want to make sure everybody understands this is not Bethesda Big Train North.
Yeah, there's no for-profit, team that is the anchor of this. We're not necessarily anticipating doing something where there's tickets and vendors. I think what we're starting off with here is let's build a great baseball field. And, there are like thousands and thousands of players who will use that, and families who would use that. And that's a modest level of investment that I think we can certainly do. If the vision of that were to grow through, public-private partnership, or, the development process, contributions from the developers through, all of what will proceed, then there could be room to expand on it. But within the footprint of the left and the right foul poles, it's going to be the same. It's going to be a high quality baseball field. And so generally that's what I'm saying is let's get started. I don't think we want to contemplate, buildings, additional parking. There's already a parking lot there. The park is fairly similar in many respects to how it used to be. Although some houses have sort of encroached into what was once, I think, more open space that was probably part of the broader baseball, community use of the space. And I certainly think that is a opportunity to expand that, purchase one of those houses, but that wouldn't be part of this funding. That could be a phase 2 if there is such a thing. But I think we can get started. Build amazing baseball fields, like Laytonia is a great example, and Wheaton is an amazing example. You're good at that, and we can afford to do that. And while adding some outdoor historical interpretation that I think would be really amazing and powerful, and would be a contribution to the community's telling its story. So thank you. Yes, we can follow up, and we got time to figure out all of this in the course of the process. Councilmember Duanda.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the discussion. Obviously, also very supportive of the historical significance and lifting up the project, and as part of our larger efforts to tell the full history of who we are and where we've been, and also just make it a nice place, destination place, and someplace people can go and play. My only concern, I think Councilman Friedson raised one point I was going to make. The other would be, as you're working, Chair Anderson and team, just to make sure that, we're not, I'd want to hear a little bit more about how we're going to do it over time. I don't want to spike, we just talked about how horrible some of these fields are, that right now. And I want to make sure that the sequencing is right. And you're real honest. I was happy to hear you say, it wouldn't be the largest project in the world, but we would get something really nice done. So I would want to hear more about, as you're coming back with the PDF, I support the recommendation, but just that we're making sure we're keeping on track with the other fields as well. So I think hopefully that sounds consistent with what you can do, but you feel free to respond. But I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, and we're happy to talk to you offline about how all this fits together, if you'd like.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's my Friedson.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And just before we close this out, I just want my intentions to be clear here. The conversation has been about a PDF because that's how it was presented. I'm not necessarily pushing for a PDF. I'm not even sure that a PDF is the appropriate avenue based on the conversation here. So I just want to be very clear, at least from my perspective, that we're providing flexibility to come up with an appropriate way to move this forward that isn't necessarily a standalone PDF, but that appropriately memorialize that this is going to be something that happens. And whether that's an MOU, whether that's a memo to us, whether something in writing that demonstrates the commitment, but is the appropriate mechanical and accounting effort, and also make sure that we're setting community expectations in an appropriate place, as Councilmember Jawando just noted, and as Chair Anderson, I think, attempted to do earlier. So I just wanted to be clear about that. I'm not pushing for a separate standalone PDF.
Don't need to presuppose the outcome, but it needs to be written down with a timeline and a budget. And I think we can all agree that if you don't have those things, then you don't have anything. So, that's the goal here, is to get something that's written down with a timeline and a budget, and that can then also serve for community engagement. And, without community engagement, who knows what will happen. So, okay, it sounds like we'll figure out the best approach. But just wanted to initiate it now because, as was said, we've got time to work on it. We don't have to have a final answer here today or next week. We got some time. All right, thank you. Pam, back to you.
Okay, let's see. We're going to move on to the next PDF, which is the Bethesda Park impact payment. It's at the bottom of the 5th page, I believe. And basically, it just adds money to FY23 based on what the commission believes are going to be the contributions to that PDF. But pretty straightforward. I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Well, my question is just about the expenditures from the fund. How does the council approve what expenditures are made from the fund?
I will defer to the planning department to weigh in on how the money is spent.
Well, we spend this money typically not because it's something we thought of, but because it's identified in the Bethesda master plan and there's an opportunity to execute. So the Bethesda master plan, which, as you know, was the council's direction, not ours, sets out a list of parks and it establishes some priorities. And honestly, a lot of times the ones we move on, yeah, we're trying to do the priorities that are identified in the plan, but we're also jumping on things when they're right. So it's not like we really have the luxury of picking and choosing. We have to move on properties as they become available, as redevelopment occurs, et cetera. We always are talking to all of you, as well as members of the community, about what we should be trying to accomplish next. But we really are not in a position where we can necessarily say, okay, council, what do you think are the next thing we should do? It's really more a question of what property is getting redeveloped, what property is up for sale, how much money do we have in the PIP, and we have to be able to jump on it when it happens. A lot of times we're asking for other sources of revenue other than the PIP. So we're coming back to you for approval for ALR, for something like that. And so it's not like you're cut out of the process, but I'm just telling you, to be perfectly candid, we really need to be able to be flexible because we're trying to be responsive to what the opportunities are in front of us, not so much like we had some idea about which ones are more important or which ones we should be putting to the top of the list.
Well, appreciate that. I'm a little concerned that there isn't really a same page here about what the priorities are. So I would like to follow up here with a better sense of what some of the acquisitions and expenditures are that you're envisioning for the Bethesda plan, to implement the Bethesda plan, and then the anticipated revenues. I mean, this is a little different than like ALARF, where a lot of the money that you're spending is not state money. This is a tax that the council agreed to levy, and I think the council, needs to have a clear sense of how that funding is going to be allocated. And I am concerned about the amount of resources that are potentially available to the Elm Street Park, as just an example. And there are, I'm 100% there on the Woodmont Park as, in civic space as the first priority. But I'm a little concerned about what comes after that. So I'd like to get a better sense of how those revenues and expenditures are anticipated. And, I think there's ultimately, of course, the opportunity to be flexible, but I think we're lacking a little transparency from my perspective at this time.
Well, we can give you a list, and we've provided it to you. But Mr. Friedson seemed to want to say something. I didn't want to finish.
I mean, if there's a list, it would be nice to have it in the budget, so we can see it at the time we're approving funds and things like that. Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit confused. I mean, we're basically authorizing the Parks Department to receive tax revenues that the county has effectively, levied, or fees that the county has effectively levied. The purpose of the PHED that the council approved, along with a list of projects as part of the Bethesda downtown plan. I wasn't here, and Councilmember Jawanda wasn't here. You were here, and went through and decided what within the Bethesda downtown plan
Yes, but
would be the parks and the green space and open space priorities within that. So I
right.
would push
And I just
back
want
a
to
little
ensure that
bit
that's
on
what we're doing.
on your suggestion. There's been a lack of transparency here. I mean, there is a list that I have seen that I have engaged quite a bit on this issue, both as the local council member for this policy area and also as the parks lead. But I would just push back a little bit on the lack of transparency assertion that has been made here. I think if you would like to get briefed on the list of projects and what the expectations are, I think that's fair. But I just wanted to push back a little bit here in fairness. And I don't think that we're not, it's fine as background for the budget, but we're not approving as part of the budget the particular projects.
So when are they approved?
What do you mean, when are they approved?
I mean, I've asked. Okay, well, Pam, can you share with us what you know about anticipated expenditures and so forth? You're on mute. Still on mute. I think no. I can hear the beeping, but I can't hear the speaking.
Could we hear from Mike while you're waiting?
Just while you're waiting, Pam, I want you to know the Bethesda Park Impact Payment PDF as is in Circle 41 of your packet. It just has the language about how for what purposes those funds can be spent.
Okay. Look, I'm not trying to make a huge deal here, but I want to. You said Circle 40 what, Mike?
41.
Circle 41 of your packet.
And I can tell you, and we're happy to share this with you in more detail, probably maybe offline makes more sense. The things that we're working on that are live options are Veterans Park Civic Green, which you mentioned, Farm Women's Market, Capitol Crescent Civic Green, which is across from the old Barnes & Noble, end of the Purple Line, Eastern Capitol Crescent Urban Recreational Park, that's along Montgomery Avenue, and the Eastern Greenway Neighborhood Greens, Battery Lane Expansion, and Elm Street.
Right.
Those are things that are on the table right now because they are actually implicated in some development project, or there is a willing seller, or we've already acquired some property, or whatever. But I'm just saying, to your question, how do we decide? We use the master plan, which prioritizes these. And then we try to find the ones that are available. And really, that's kind of the long and short of it. I don't think it's practical to write those projects into the budget because we have to be able to make decisions in the interim between budget cycles. Some of these things look like they're happening and then they fall through. Sometimes a property becomes available that we didn't realize. It's just not, we can't be in the position of going to the council and saying we're going to write into the capital budget that on a 2-year cycle, what are the projects we're going to try to acquire and move on in the next 2 years, because that will leave us paralyzed.
Okay. My concern has been that the Parks Department may not have the same priority around the Farm Women's Market and might, prioritize some of those projects that are listed that are a lower priority, I think, and I think the community expected, and so on. So that's really what I'm reacting to.
Okay, well then let me address that specifically. Farm Women's Market is the top priority, period. We're working on it. We're serious about it. We want to make it work. There are some serious issues with that project in terms of how the economics of it work, but there's certainly no attempt to downgrade it or deprioritize on our part. In fact, we are very heavily engaged. We have our own real estate finance consultant who is giving us regular briefings and advising us on this question. We are as serious as a heart attack about that project.
And I will say, I mean, the executive negotiation that has left inadequate resources for the park, and I think that is a core problem. So we don't know yet what the answer is there, but Councilmember Freitas, any comments you want to make?
Yeah, well, a couple things. I mean, a little frustrated by this conversation, to be perfectly honest with you. I've been extremely involved in Farm Women's Market. I've been working with the county executive, been working with the community. I've been working with the Parks Department. There are a lot of efforts that are taking place. It seems clear to me that you're not fully versed and aware of all that has been going on, but I think it would be important to have that. If the goal here is to have a briefing, you're the chair of the committee. If you want to have a conversation or discussion on the priorities and the implementation of the Bethesda downtown plan and of the PIP, I'm all for that. We could have had that for the last 4 years, and certainly I would have been happy to have it. At a couple budget conversations previously, I've talked about these projects, including specifically the Farm Women's Market, which is a top priority of mine. But I think some of the comments and suggestions that have been made up to this point are not reflective of some of the conversations that are taking place. I share some of your same views. One, in the importance of the Farm Women's Market as the central public amenity as part of the Bethesda downtown plan, and two, the interest and the urging of the community to move this project forward, and made that very clear to the county executive and to the Parks Department, and will continue to do so. But I just don't want to get caught up in the conversation, as it has gone on here, that it's based on a lack of commitment or a lack of priority, because I don't think that that's accurate, and frankly, I don't think it's particularly helpful to moving the project forward. But Ms. Beck has been in a number of these conversations as of late, and so I see that she wants to weigh in as well.
Yeah, I think there is definitely a commitment to the project. I think what we've been circling on, and I think we've been trying to make some progress recently, is just making the numbers work. I mean, there are a number of factors that affect the economics. Certainly, the change in scale of development was one factor. Devaluing the PLD parking lots when the plan was approved ended up also having implications for this. So, but be that as it may, people want this to move forward. I think, really now the focus is on trying to look at the economics. Do we have the right costs? We don't want the public charge for anything that it shouldn't be. What is the scope of the park improvements that would initially be funded? What is the proper allocation of costs to the different parties? But I think what I'm hearing from you, Councilmember Reamer, is that you think it is a very appropriate use of the PIP payment to help support the project. And I think that will have to be part of the solution. It will be probably a combination of support from the county in the form of probably GO bonds for a new park project. It will probably require PIP payments. I hope it will require more contributions from the developers, and I hope it will also require the town to ensure that we get the full dollar value of what they've discussed. So I think it's probably doable, and also we have to look at the scale of park improvements that are done initially. Maybe some of the improvements are phased over time. So I think people are committed to the project. Right now, we're circling around trying to nail down the numbers, and frankly, who's going to contribute how much.
Okay.
So, but it's good to hear.
Let's keep moving.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving. All right. Pam, we can't hear you, unfortunately.
Ms. Beck, can you go back off of mute because there's some feedback for you? Thanks.
Okay, Pam, you can unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Are muted.
Well, getting an echo. Are you on two devices at the same time?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you got to mute. You got to mute one of
It's
them.
either one device or the other. You can
Yeah.
try muting the other device. I think that's the issue.
And turning the volume down as well, because if we hear, I think we're hearing you through the other device, so it's not just enough to mute it. You got to turn the volume down. Unmute the computer. We can't hear you. Unmute the computer, and then turn the volume down on the phone or whatever the other device is that you have.
All right. Does this work?
There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
And I won't charge you for my IT support there.
All right. We'll see how this goes. We have moved off of the Bethesda Park impact payment, and we are now doing the energy conservation local parks. Okay. There's two. So there's energy conservation local parks, energy conservation non-local parks. Both of these have modest increases over the FY23 through 26 time period, and then they add 2 fiscal years of funding, the same level as the 25-26 funding. The local parks are funded through Mncppc bonds, the non-local through GO bonds. Staff recommends that the committee support these increases because they really do affect how we are addressing climate change within the parks and the county's effort to get to zero carbon emissions by 2030.
Right.
Any questions?
Not that I have. Seeing none.
Okay. Let's see. The next would be the enterprise facility improvement. Again, this is adding some expected enterprise revenue that the Parks Department can weigh in on. Again, it's, the council step doesn't make a judgment on what their expected revenue is, but there is no change in revenue bond in the 6-year period. If anyone has any questions?
Pam?
Yep.
Sorry. Enterprise. Tell us where you are again here.
Reviewing
On the top of page 7. Okay.
Yes.
No change. Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. The next is facility planning. Again, you're in this one, it's facility planning for non-local parks. There is an increase over the FY 23-24, and then it adds level funding for 2 additional fiscal years. And this is again where the executive did weigh in and request to keep the funding for the Capitol Crescent Trail renovation and the Long Branch Area Parks Initiative. And this does that.
Okay, let's hear about the Long Branch Area Parks Initiative.
So we're very, very excited about this. We have a series of parks in Stream Valley Parks and local parks, community parks in the Long Branch area. And the big picture is that they need activating amenities added to them, and they need life cycle improvements of facilities. So we've looked broadly at all the parks in Long Branch and connections. I certainly need to emphasize trail connections to connect these parks to one another, and greenway connections. So we have kind of a holistic plan to invest and improve in the parks in Long Branch, which are already heavily utilized, but we really want to take them to the next level, add a lot of activating amenities, improve the fields within those parks that are heavily used, and look at the system of Long Branch parks holistically and improve them as a group as opposed to individually.
And what do you anticipate is the budget for this?
Well, right now we're talking about the facility planning. We have concepts for all of these parks, but this is really to take it to the next level of facility planning, where in the next CIP we'll be recommending major investments.
And we have some bond bill requests for some of these projects too.
And we have already made major investments, and through our level of efforts, I don't want to give the impression that we're not going to do anything for 2 or 5 years. We have ongoing level of effort investments, but we anticipate coming back in the next cycle with very significant investments and perhaps some standalone PDFs.
Okay. I was actually in one of the parks on Flower this weekend at the Flower Coffee, and met up with a bunch of families there who were really grateful for the enhanced equipment that has gone in there. I think that's been a big improvement. But there's certainly a lot of opportunities. I mean, when you look behind the library, there's some recreation space there. Is that parks owned, like the basketball courts and tennis courts that are back there?
We own real estate at the library, yes.
Yeah.
And especially that sort of soccer field area, which gets really played into mud, and there's some septet issues there. So yeah, we're looking at all that as part of this package.
That's the one that's in the park, though, right?
Yeah, but it's also behind the rec center.
It's a little further behind. There are. I mean, I imagine you won't miss it, but there's a basketball court and a tennis court behind the library, and I've always thought that would be a great place for the hard court soccer, that you're working on. It might be more utilized. I don't know, but okay. So when will we get the facility plan for this area?
If we get the funding now, we will be ready by the next CIP cycle to submit our construction requests.
And in the meantime, as Mike said, we're building stuff. We're not waiting.
Okay. All right, Councilman Duano.
Just wanted to chime in. You asked a couple of questions I was going to ask, but really excited. So next CIP, glad you're not waiting. I made my own trails back in this area when nothing was there, a long time ago. And so I'm really excited that it will be updated. And please keep me posted, in particular, keep the committee posted, but I really want to know, Mike, separately offline, the timeline and what's going on. So just wanted to note that to you as well. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, great. Okay, Pam, what's next?
Okay. Next is the legacy urban space. This is the funding is from program Open Space. It increases funding by $500,000 a year in FY23 through 26, and it adds 2 fiscal years of level funding, as you can see on page 8. The overall project cost remains the same at $150 million. The increases requested are intended to address the increasingly high cost of land acquisitions in urban areas. And as the overall cost hasn't gone up, staff recommends the committee support this change.
All right. Comments here?
The next is that okay? Mid-county park benefit payments. This is similar to the Bethesda park payments, but it's for mid-county. There is a request to increase by $500,000 in FY23 and 24 to receive anticipated compensation. And parks can weigh in on what their expectation here is if you have any questions, but staff recommends the committee support this change.
Okay.
Okay. The next are minor new construction local parks. This is an increase of anywhere from $90,000 to $136,000 a year in 23 through 26 compared to the current CIP, and it adds 2 fiscal years of funding to this project. The council did receive testimony advocating for continued funding for park amenities such as playgrounds, courts, picnic areas. This testimony applies both to local and non-local parks, and you'll see is right now we're talking about the minor new construction in local parks, but there's always another PDF that follows. This is minor new construction in non-local parks. It too has here because it is requesting an increase of funding over each year and 2 additional years of funding. And staff recommends the committee support these changes because the parks are getting a lot of use these days, as we all know, especially through the last couple of years. And these are really designed to help keep the parks up and in good shape for the people that are using them.
Okay.
We'll skip ahead then to Northwest Branch Recreational Park Athletic Area. This change brings in Phase 2 design, which is scheduled for FY26, and additional funding for design and construction in FY27 and 28. This furthers this project, which has not had funding in a couple fiscal years, and so staff supports suggests the committee support this change.
Okay. Comments? All right.
The next are the park refreshers. This is designed to really go in and do major renovation and construction, but in the area of $1 to $3 million per park. It's not a brand new park, and it's not just a minor level of effort upkeep. It's a little bit above that. And this increases funding for Mncppc bonds, anywhere from $371,000 to almost $6,000 per year from FY23 through 26. There's increases in program open space funding as well, and it adds 2 fiscal years. These really are able to allow the Parks Department to do targeted, real work in certain parks on a pace that they need to keep up. So staff suggests the committee support this change.
Okay. Sounds good.
These are definitely the level of effort projects that the parks undertakes. Next to our planned life cycle asset replacement for local parks and non-local parks. And we discuss every time we come before the committee to review the CIP for parks that they do have a long backlog of projects that they need to do to renovate and keep the parks up to date. They have a growing list, and renovation costs are increasing, as is everything right now with inflation. So they are requesting an increase in bond funding to help with this for the local parks, and an increase in current revenue and geo bonds for the non-local parks. And then on page 28, there's an Appendix A, if anyone is interested, that lists all the individual projects that are under this planned life cycle asset replacement PDFs. There are a lot of sub-project lists and what the changes are to those. So for transparency, provided that on page 28, we typically don't go through all of those.
Okay. Director Riley, is this where we can just bring up the vexing issue of resurfacing that parking lot at the Sligo Golf?
Yeah, yes, Chair Reamer. I actually drove through the Sligo Golf Course parking lot on my way home from work last night, and we have had a lot of input, particularly from the Sligo Golf Association, about that parking lot deteriorating. I have to agree, it's got to the point where it is, it's not unfair to use the word unsafe to walk on. You certainly can still drive in and park, but it's pretty broken up, and I agree. It's got to the point where we need to do some, at least some temporary repairs. The Sligo Golf Association actually wrote me lately, and they had got a quote from a local contractor to do repairs to the tune of $30,000. So within that ballpark range, we're going to assess what we can do to try to improve that course, as soon as the spring weather allows us to do some paving work. I just do want to say we will do that. We'll commit to making that parking lot safe. But we did have a facility condition assessment done for the whole golf course and all its infrastructure that calls for spending a significant amount of money, well over $5 million over the next 7 years if that golf course's infrastructure is to be maintained. Things like actually permanently repairing the parking lot, making things accessible, replacing the irrigation system. So someday we're going to have to come to grips with how that golf course will be sustained. But for today, I do agree that the parking lot has got to a point of disrepair where something needs to be done immediately, and we will go ahead and take care of that.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much. I had a chance to use it with my family, not to go to the golf course, but for a sort of like a meetup point for a community group. And there was some, families were hiking on the trails nearby, and I'm sure people use it for the soccer field that's there too. So there's a lot of use of that parking lot that extends beyond the golf course. And, absolutely the bigger questions about the future of that facility are important. But I think at the moment, if we could just, have it not be full of uneven surfaces and pothole kind of things, that would be great. So appreciate the association finding that affordable estimate, and definitely appreciate your willingness to tackle that and just kind of put that issue behind us.
Quick question. Really glad to hear that as well. I do use that course, and as a lot of us do, it's a great community spot. And I had noticed that parking lot needed some work. What's the timeline, Director Riley, for how quickly you can get that going?
We will try to get it done in the next few months before we really get into the summer months.
Okay, good. That's what I was going to say. Obviously, it'll start getting some more use in a couple of months here. So that okay, good. All right, thank you.
Okay, great. So that's Pilar.
Okay, move along. The next is the Stream Protection SVP project. This is the one the executive recommended adding $8.8 million to, so that the Parks Department can do the county's efforts for satisfying their MS4 permit. Typically, the Parks Department asks for 2 level years of funding for the 2 additional fiscal years, so this wouldn't be in this group, but there is now this recommendation from the exec, which the Parks Department has agreed makes sense. They do the work, they have an expertise in the area, and so just putting that before the committee that is a change.
Okay. Great. Mary Beck.
Just one point of clarification. I did want to make it clear that this project, the additional $8.8 million is funded with water quality backed funding sources. So this does not compete with bonds or other kinds of funding sources. So just wanted to make sure the committee understood that.
Okay.
Great, thank you. We're moving on. The next are trails. Their first PDF is for hard surface design and construction. The next is hard surface renovation. There are increases requested for these over the course of the next CIP due to rising construction costs, and again, the rising list of projects that need to be addressed either through design and construction or through surface renovation. And those are listed on page 13 of the staff report. The trails have gotten a lot of use over the last 2 years and continue to get use, and they also are ways in which a lot of people travel. So staff has requested that council or committee support this increase.
Okay, so you're recommending to fund the parks request.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Good. This has been a great area of, improved investment and huge impact. One of the most widely used facilities in the whole park system are trails, hard service, natural service, both. And it's been great seeing all of the expansion, and we want it to continue. So terrific. Okay, thumbs up. Here we go. On to the next.
Okay, great. The next is the urban park elements. And so, yes, we already had a little bit of introduction to this earlier. It was one of the very few PDFs that the executive actually comments on. And his request was to delay the funding of Mncppc bonds of $500,000 worth in FY23 for 2 years to FY25, particularly to delay the start of the project for the dog park at Norwood Park. The council did receive a lot of testimony on this, mostly completely in opposition. We didn't receive anything in support of this dog park, and received as much correspondence negatively about the dog park as you received on every other issue related to parks during this process. So I'll just put that out there.
Okay, so yeah, this one is a tough one. I had a chance to go visit. I went the other morning. There were many dog users, using the park in the morning off leash. It's getting used in that way at that time, with a lot of enthusiasm. But as I walked the grounds, it seemed to me that the proposed park is quite large. And it brings to mind what I see, in Silver Spring at Ellsworth, which is a very large park that you can see from Route 29. And I just wonder if there isn't a more urbanized format here, on a different piece of ground, either in that location or a different location, that can fit in a little bit more easily without taking, uses away. It's one of the challenges. It kind of reminds me of Silver Spring Intermediate Park, which at one point was proposed to become a community garden. What we learned was that there were people who used that same ground for multiple uses over the course of any given day. And, that would basically mean that it could only be used for one use. And that created a lot of reaction. I think I think Bethesda needs dog parks, but I think this one seems a little large. I wouldn't want to see the reduction of the bond funding, though. I think the Parks Department needs, the funding. So I don't concur with changing any funding, but I think we ought to come up with a better approach on the dog parks. So would welcome, hearing from the commission about that. Councilmember Friedson, anything you'd like to share here?
Yeah, well, appreciate it. Certainly have heard from the community quite a bit on this. We've met multiple times and went out and visited again. I actually used to live down the street from it. I don't live that far from it now, but I used to literally live down the street from Norwood and visited there even more often than I do now. So certainly understand that area. I similarly, would be willing to accept the delay. I think that the concern about the funding, and I'd like to hear from the commission on this, is whether or not the funding could be used for other uses. I mean, we've talked about the needs of this area, and then separately from that, there is a significant need for urban dog parks. And so, some thoughts there as well to make sure that we're, as more time is being taken and the community voices are being heard, and some concerns about some specific constraints with this particular site are being addressed, that there still is going to be efforts to use the additional time to actually locate additional sites. So I personally like to hear from the commission on that and the Parks Department on that as well.
The short answer is yes. We would use this time to look at other sites, other configurations, etc. We just want to note that while council staff is correct in observing that you got a lot of input against this and none for it, I submit to you there was a lot of support for this at the planning board, and the reason you're not hearing that is because those people think the project's approved. So I just want to note that. However, we are fine with taking a pause and looking at other options, locations, etc. And for that reason, we would be fine with the first sentence, the county executive's recommendation, which says a 2-year delay for a dog park at Norwood is recommended until alternative locations, community concerns can be addressed. However, as Mr. Reamer said, we would want to get the $500,000 in 23, not move it to 25, because we have other projects that can be built, which we'd like to fund, and that is planning commission, park bond revenue, not competing with other affordability, revenue sources. So our request to you is, yes, we'll do what you're saying, but we would like the money back and get the money in 23 instead of pushing it out.
I don't see any reason to delay park bonds funding. I think that there's a public commitment here that is firm, and I'm sure the community is going to hold you to that, and it's going to hold us to that. I have no doubt about that. But certainly, there's a lot of urban elements are a broad area, and there's tremendous need throughout the county. And I would hate to see us, unnecessarily hold up funding that could be used in order to benefit residents. So I think, to me, that satisfies the community concerns. It doesn't take away from worthy projects.
Yeah, if you could, let us know how you will use those funds. That would be helpful. But in general, great. There's agreement. We're going to rethink the location. We won't use that location. We don't need to cut the park's funding. That's not necessary. And there's other projects you can use it for. And so this particular location is not happening. And you'll go back and consider alternative ideas. And meanwhile, we don't want to cut the park's budget because you've got a very long list of projects you could fund, and you can use that funding, for various community needs. So let's keep it.
So just to chime in, I agree. You guys beat me to it, but it sounds good. And Pam, just so we're clear, we'll go with the delay, but the funding stays in the account. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I would personally want to see some language that it's more than a delay. It's like it is a reconsideration. So, okay.
Agreed.
Okay. Great. You can see I turned off my video. I'm still having some internet problems here in the office, so we'll see if this helps. If we're ready to move on, and I'll note all that before we get to council and bring our packet there. Next is Wheaton Regional Park improvements. And in this project, there is quite a big increase. The current amount of funding has been lower because the parks has been focused on the Shorefield area and in parking lot renovations and things like that. The increase in funding, which seems quite high, is really to look at the whole park and to address park-wide issues and infrastructure and facility improvements. So the increase ranges anywhere from $350,000 to $3 million over the 6-year period and adds $9 million total to this project. This was funding that was previously shown in beyond the 6 years. So it was something that was discussed but was not actually funded in the last CIP or amended CIP. So you have that before you. It's a big increase. We can tentatively agree to this, and we can move on to the next section. Actually, would be the consent. You can bypass that, and we could move to the executive's affordability PDF. It may be good to tentatively be okay with this PDF, but again, it might be impacted by what the Parks Department puts forward as ways to bridge that gap between their recommended budget and the CE's recommended budget.
All right, so let's hear from Parks here.
So are we talking about the affordability PDF and the tiers?
Well, maybe before that, we really should get the committee weighing in on the Wheaton Regional Park Improvement PDF increase so that I can have that in the minutes and for the council. I just wanted to note that it could be impacted by the affordability PDF because it is the largest increase being requested in the CIP.
Okay, right.
I personally am in favor of it.
Okay, let's just restate it here. There is a, the Parks request has substantial funding for the Wheaton Regional enhancements, and staff is letting us know that the executive's recommendation doesn't leave a lot of funding, and the total staff recommendation here is to indeed accept some considerable reductions. And this is identified as a place that will have to be stretched time in order to accommodate that. Is that right, Pam?
Well,
or why don't you restate it then? What you're trying to convey?
All I was trying to say is, before you was the Wheaton Regional Park Improvements PDF with a $9 million increase to really address the whole park. I just was trying to state that it is the largest increase in the CIP that's being requested for one single project, and it could be impacted by the executive's PDF. But aside from that, if we're looking just at this and we're getting the committee's thoughts for support or not support of this PDF, like we can deal with the executives and the gap in budgeting in a minute, but just wanted to raise that if it is the highest request in funding and there is not enough money to go around, it may be impacted by that affordability PDF. But in general, staff would support funding this project if there was no issue with budgeting.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right. Committee is in agreement.
Okay. So that said, we can bypass the consent ones, and then if the committee feels there's any need to bring any of those up, you can send me a note and we can bring them up at council. I kind of doubt that'll happen. These are all level funding of ongoing projects, or they are basically the finishing up of projects. So nothing worth a big decision by the committee members. But again, it's all there for people to read and see. Section 5 is the executive's affordability reconciliation PDF. And before we get started, I think that OMB might want to weigh in. And I just wanted to reiterate again, Parks has requested a certain CIP. It is higher than what they had in the last amended CIP. The executive has recommended a different amount. They added money for the Stream Valley Protection PDF. If you don't consider that, the executive's recommendation is still greater than what they're currently being funded, but not at the level at which Parks has requested. And so in that, the executive has provided a reconciliation PDF, which has a certain amount of current revenue funding that they would like to see reduced and a current amount, an amount of GO bond funding they would like to see reduced. But before we get into the details, I did think it would be good to hear from OMB in general, and then we can address how to reconcile these things. This is on pages 24, 25, 26, and 27 of the staff report.
Okay.
Okay.
So as Pam noted, the executive CIP did result in a $16.7 million increase to the parks CIP for the projects that they had proposed, plus the $8.8 million for a total of the $25.5 million increase. And this $19 million reduction that's been discussed is against what they've requested. So they had a large increase requested, and the executive was not able to fund all of it. Parks has been fortunate over the last full 4 CIP cycles. Their budgets have increased by 38%, while our bonds are going down by 14%. So there has been growth in the parks budget over time. And I think part of what we struggled with is trying to make room for some other things, most principally school construction, again, trying to leverage that build-to-learn funding. I think another important aspect I'd like the committee to understand is that about $5 million of the increases that were not recommended were related to current revenue. The executive took the approach of recommending almost no increases in current revenue across all agencies. And so it was the rare exception, like the Long Branch facility planning money, that showed an increase in the January CIP because he wanted to know what the financial picture was for the operating budget in March. I think that if you also understand that with the county executive's budget, you do not have to choose to make any reductions in previously approved projects. I was surprised to see the Blair ball fields on the list of cuts. I was surprised to see the cricket fields on the list of proposed reductions or deferrals. I understand park and planning has been sort of prioritizing the level of efforts, and you'll get to decide how this all plays out. But the county executive's budget provided sufficient funding to keep all previously approved projects on track. So if you make a decision to take some of these deferrals, it's because of different priorities. It's not because the money wasn't there.
Okay, thank you for your comments. All right, Pam.
Okay, so I think that brings us to page 24 of the staff report. So there are 3 levels to what the CE recommended. And the first one we'll just knock out pretty quick, which was the $100,000 and $105,000 deferral in Mncppc bonds from FY25 to 26 and 27. In Parks or the board's reply to the CE's recommendations, they did not object to this deferral. So they showed in their response that it would be something they would apply to the plan life cycle asset replacement of local parks under the resurfacing of lots and paths. And they just show that. You can see that at the top of page 24. Given they didn't reject this as a proposed change, we can move forward unless someone has any questions.
Okay.
All right, the next would be really addressing this current revenue gap. As OMB has mentioned, the executive's view was that current revenue funding should be level funding in this CIP. Parks had provided a request that didn't do that. And to reach that, they've put it, and I put it in table form, table 2. The projects that in their response, they listed as ways in which they would achieve that reduction. It is through plan life cycle asset replacement, non-local parks, minor renovations, facility planning of non-local parks, and legacy open space. As usual, in looking at these reductions, Parks will provide more information back into the committee to help make their decisions. And in doing so, they then prioritize what they feel are cuts that are more or less impactful to them. Of course, they prefer to have all the funding, but if they can't get it. I show on page 25 the current revenue reductions in tiers. Tier 1 would reduce the plan life cycle asset replacement on local parks, minor renovations. That would be restored, that cut in the amount of $1.25 million. And that would still, that would satisfy about 75% of the CE's recommended reduction to current revenue. And then you can see tier 2, and also in the table it shows you what the reduction would be to current revenue. It satisfies about 50% of that reduction, and then tier 3 is restoring all the funding. Staff's recommendation would be, given the need for continued level of effort projects in the county and the use of the parks over time, and particularly during the pandemic, be to restore tier 1.
Okay, so we're on page 27 now.
25. We're doing current revenue first.
Okay. Current revenue first. Got it.
Page 25.
I see. So that's the restoration of the current revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this is for all the things that people actually notice the most, you know, the condition of their local park, whether equipment is outdated equipment and gets updated, whether really bad parking lots get resurfaced, you know, all that stuff. Ironically, it's probably the fund item that people experience the most, even though it isn't named and identified in a way that people understand. But it's what actually shows up. And okay, Councilor Friedson.
Yeah, thank you. This is largely maintenance. This is taking care of what we've got. And we spent a lot of time today predominantly talking about new things that we want to see, new activations that we want to have happen, potential new acquisitions. And for me, the idea that we're moving forward on, you know, kind of new things and not taking care of the things that we already have is a disconnect that I don't think that we should promote or allow. So I would move forward that we restore all three of the tiers. If we need to do it in separate tranches, I'm okay with that if there's any functional difference. But this is maintenance. This is taking care of what we have. In fact, we talked about Sligo golf course earlier and talked about paving of the road. That's taking care of an asset that we already have, things that have been heavily used, particularly during the pandemic, that residents overwhelmingly rely on for mental, physical, and their own well-being. And I just think that our first priority should be to take care of the things that we've got. That's what this really predominantly is. And so, I would propose if committee members are willing that we, push forward in restoring all of this funding.
Sounds good to me. Councilmember Dwando, any comments here?
Yes, I have my hand up here. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it.
I wasn't looking in the corner of the screen.
No problem. Yeah. I definitely think we should, as staff recommends, restore tier one. Look, we all want to restore everything all the time, and I just think the question is, particularly as we're talking about current revenues, these are all decisions we're going to have to make in a larger context. And, we've got a lot we need to do. So I guess if I could hear from the parks director, and for the public, I think a lot of people see this and they don't know what this means. We're talking about maintenance, obviously, but what's the difference between what you have in tier one? Obviously, it's more important because you put it in tier one versus tier two and tier three. If you could just, lay that out quickly, please.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So tier one and tier two are both about PLR minor renovations, and that's just replacement of failing infrastructure across the 424 parks as it reaches its life cycle. And of course, as we replace amenities, we can replace them with upgraded amenities as need be. And OMB just questioned this issue about how could good projects like Blair or the cricket field come on our cut list, as opposed to keeping or reducing these types of level of efforts projects that perhaps are not as well known to or tangible to community members. And it's because through these level of efforts like PLR and combination of urban park elements, minor new construction, we've been able to be nimble. We've been able to fix things before they break. We've been able to be equitable in our distribution of expenditure across the 424 parks. So I think the Parks Department's been really clear through the last several CIP cycles that given our getting to our level of efforts like PLR to the point where we believe they match the need, we will always defend these level of efforts over a new standalone project that delivers something new. So we have backlogs. I mean, I'd love to come to the committee with our enterprise asset management data that names the backlogs of things in the parks that are beyond life cycle. A lot of it is invisible. A lot of it is underground infrastructure, like utilities. A lot of it is HVAC, roofs, you name it.
Okay.
And then, as I said, it's not just fixing something that breaks with something like it. If it's an amenity, when it reaches life cycle, if it's a tennis court and we want to convert it to a soccer court, when we replace it, we'll do that. So
got it. So that's tiers 1 and 2 primarily. Yes. Makes a ton of sense. Talk to me about 3.
Okay. Tier 3 was the facility planning was a bump to basically facility plan the next phase of the Capitol Crescent Trail. That not only needs to be rebuilt, it's starting to reach the end of its life cycle. We need to study its cross section and what it will look like in its next life. The only reason we put that in tier 3 is it will still remain a priority, but we'll have to defer something else in our facility planning level of effort in order to keep the Capitol Crescent Trail on track. Legacy Open Space is the program that we buy the best of the best natural areas. That is still important to us, but as we've said, our real priority is the Legacy Urban Space PDF, where we need to make sure that we have acquisitions occur in areas where we have high population. And then again, the last tranche in tier 3, the big one, is the full restoration of our PLR minor renovation increase that we request. So of all those things, it's really to us mostly important about the PLR. As much of that PLR money as we can get back, we would love to have.
And that Mr. Reamer, I think, articulated it really well. These do not look sexy in the budget or necessarily that interesting. But when you're in the park, they're the most important thing, because they do affect your experience of actually using the park facility in pretty much every single park in the county.
Absolutely. Yep. And that makes sense. So what I would do for colleagues that have asked, I mean, I'm comfortable with restoring 1 and 2 as a 3-0. And if we can put the other one in a, if we can bucket, I'd be willing to do that. But so open to colleagues, if you guys might want to do whatever you want, but that's where
I was going to try to bring everybody together to a certain extent. What you were suggesting, I was going to say maybe just do 2 tranches of tier 1 and 2 as a tranche, and then tier 3 as a tranche, which would effectively do what you were saying, and then it would be based on affordability to do the second tranche, basically. So that was going to be my suggestion. Would be basically restoring half of the PLR money, which is maintenance, and then the second half, including the other $500,000 and the 2 other, pieces, would be in a second tranche. So I would be comfortable. I wanted it all in 1 tranche. I'd be happy to split it into 2 tranches. I think that is reasonable. So if that could get everybody on board,
I appreciate that. I want to hear from Ms. Beck, and then planning, I think, has another thing they want to say too.
Just from a mechanical perspective, the way council does the information, there's really not the equivalent of a reconciliation list where you have a standby list of a bunch of things to add. It's either in or it's out, coming out of the committee. You could put 1 and 2 in, but put verbally a recommendation to add the remaining tier 3. But in terms of the numbers that get put into the system, there's no reconciliation list equivalent in the CIP for the process that the council uses.
Okay, that's helpful. So Councilmember Friedson, so then we would under the understanding that process point, could we just put the money in for 1 and 2 and then put this language as a recommendation to full council if we can do it? Is that functionally?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear from council staff, because I think we're kind of saying, I know there's not a reconciliation list, but we're saying essentially the same thing, exactly how mechanically it gets written out as a committee recommendation.
I mean, if stuff doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. I mean, there is a reconciliation of the capital budget where things try to get in, and then decisions have to be made if there's more projects than funding. So it's just different. It's a different process, but
it's kind of a distinction without much of a difference, to be honest with you. The different, yeah. So
I mean, I think splitting it into 2 tranches, makes it easier to work with. It makes it somewhat more likely that the second tranche doesn't get funded.
But more likely the first tranche gets funded.
Distinction.
That's the question.
It could make it more likely that the first tranche gets funded.
The glass is half full, not half empty.
It depends on how you look, I suppose. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Well, how about this for a proposal? I guess I have 2 suggestions for you. One would be just recommend for the reconciliation list, putting all the PLR money back, and we'll forget about facility planning and legacy open space. That'd be proposal number 1. Proposal number 2, which is just sort of a variation on that, is what if you said tier 1 PLR 1.75 million, tier 2 PLR 1.75 million. So you basically have made it half and half. You plussed up our top 2 tiers a little bit. Doesn't completely cover everything we asked for in all 3, but you just consolidated it in 2 tiers, half and half, PLR.
So you're
Yeah.
saying 3.5 million instead of 3 million, and then just not push for anything else? Is that what you're suggesting?
Why don't we just do, I mean, I appreciate that. Why don't we just do 3 million total PLAR and just call it a day?
Well, because I think we still should try to get the additional PLAR. I mean, again, this is maintenance for the stuff we already have. We're talking about all
I
these other
understand.
new
There's
projects.
there's a lot out there that we need to do too. I'm just saying it's 2 million extra dollars. It's 2.5 million. This third tranche is a big tranche. You know, it's $2.5 million. And I just, you know, of current revenues. So I'm just trying to respond to what he said. I'm fine with putting tier 1 and tier 2 in on the list, and then putting the second PLAR on the, you know, the second tier PLAR and the other things on a second tranche. Or if the planning and Park and Planning would rather just have 3 million PLAR, right, which is another $500,000, I'd be fine with that too. But it's really, that's kind of.
Why don't we kind of bring these two things together? Why don't we do 3.5 million?
No, I don't want to bring them together.
3.5 million for PLAR as a first tranche, and then the rest of PLAR as a second tranche, and not have the 500,000 as part of the recommendation at all, which is the facility planning and the legacy open space.
Right. So you're putting the.
Yeah,
I got you.
We're moving up a little bit extra of the 500,000 from PLAR, which is maintenance money. This is not new commitment.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's do that. I'd go.
And then it gives a higher level of likelihood that the 3.5 million for PLAR, which is necessary maintenance, gets funded. And then if there's additional resources, the remaining.
The second tranche is just PLAR.
It's just PLAR, and it would be like 1.48 million.
Yeah.
Instead of the 1.98 million.
Park and Planning, sound good? I know it's not what you want exactly, but you know.
I think that's a step in the right direction. We appreciate that very constructive effort to help us out on this. Just keeping up with maintenance. Yes.
Yes, thank you. As much PLAR as we can get. My staff just keeps texting me all these names of projects that are broken in the parks in case I need to name them, but as much as we can get, please.
And we'll also add a sweetener. Councilmember Friedson and I, with our toolbox, will come out and help one weekend. Can I?
We'll organize a volunteer day for you guys.
Okay, got it. All right, Mr. Chair, is that okay with you?
Sounds like we've got a plan.
Okay.
Okay. I just want to clarify it before we move on to the GO bond discussion. There will be a recommendation to restore the first tranche, $3.5 million in PLAR funding. There will be a second tranche, which would be the remaining PLAR funding, which is actually $0.98 million.
Yeah, that's right. It's $1 million. It's more like $1 million. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then not recommending the other things.
Leave the other two off.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's correct, we can move on. So the remaining thing for the committee to look at today is the reconciliation of GO bond funding. On page 26 of the staff report, you'll see I created a table of potential reductions provided by the Parks Department to satisfy that reconciliation request. It's quite a few projects. And again, they have provided their input on prioritization of those cuts or changes or reductions. And that prioritization is listed in tiers, and it's listed on page 27 of the staff report. You see that if the funding gets restored, there's a tier 1 restoration, which includes Brookside Garden Master Plan funding, Wheaton Regional Park improvements, and South Germantown Cricket Field. There's a tier 2 level of funding that provides more money to Wheaton Regional and Legacy Open Space. And then tier 3, again, more money to Wheaton Regional, Legacy Open Space, the Blair High School Field renovation and lights, and then the Northwest Branch Athletic Area prevents a delay. Anyway, it's all on page 27 of the staff report. And I will. Council staff recommended, restoration of tier 1, but moving up the Blair High School fields, keeping that in with the tier 1. It's a project that was very much discussed by the committee and the council at the last CIP. There was a lot of support for it and the need for ball fields, especially lighted ball fields in the East County. So that's the recommendation, up to the council's decision. For committee.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is a really good location for a lighted, additional lighted fields. It's right off the Beltway. The students there can use the fields, but then the community can use it in the non-school hours. And it is, there's not a lot of places where we can add capacity in the down county and the East County where we have a real deficit. And so to be able to do that here, it's a really, really good location, and it's worth, prioritizing it. So, absolutely would like to see that move forward. Appreciate council staff's recommendation and certainly want to get behind that. Okay.
Could we put in a word for Wheaton Regional?
Yeah.
We would really like to get the tier 2 for Wheaton Regional, that even though we have not publicly moved forward with facility plans, that will be coming to the planning board shortly. And we've identified a whole bunch of really, what I think you're going to agree are very compelling pieces to that. The sooner that we can get those implemented, the better. This is an equity focus area. It's really, the regional destination park for all of East County. And I really just can't overstate how important we think that is as the foundation of really improving park service in the Wheaton area and beyond. So if you could find some way to at least put on the reconciliation list the tier 2 money for Wheaton Regional, I think that would be a good direction.
Yeah. Concur with that. Councilman Joanna.
Yeah, just want to mention so agree moving Blair up. I think I agree with your comments, Mr. Chair. Wanted to just mention Councilmember Rice's letter that he, I think, sent to us about Ovenhazen and the cricket field. Just wanted to acknowledge that. I understand, that.
And we're trying here. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to do the best we can. And, I think Councilman Friedson and I were there for that first, and others for that first cricket field opening where I hit my wicked googly. Mike remembers. And
you had the big shot though.
Yeah, exactly. It was fun, but understand the needs there, and but it's always a balancing, and just to understand the park and planning's request around. You're just asking that we try to put in a second tranche, the Wheaton Regional 1.9, not the big one down there, but the 1.9 on tier 2, right? That's what you're asking.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. All right. And I'd be fine with that in the second tranche. So thank you.
And that's the only piece of the second tranche?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
That's my understanding, yeah. Which would strengthen its chances, I think.
So if we're going to do that, can we just put it all in one tranche?
Well, I think it's a lot,
I mean, my preference would be to restore all of it, just to put it out there. I understand that, we have some constraints here, but I just want to be on record saying that. So let's just summarize where we're at here. Ms. Beck, I think if you want to speak, go ahead. But once you're done speaking, if you could mute, because you're getting a lot of people.
Sorry. Yes. I just want to make sure I'm clear when we leave here to know what's in our numbers, because there's not a reconciliation list. So things are either in or they're not. And I just want to be clear so that Pam and I will know what to put in.
Yeah, just to be clear though, there is a CIP reconciliation. It functions somewhat differently than the operating budget reconciliation. So I don't think it's totally accurate to say that, that there isn't really a functional reconciliation. It just functions somewhat different.
No, let me restate. Things go in and get taken out typically at reconciliation in the CIP. It is unlike the operating budget where things get in the end with the reconciliation. So I just want to make sure the committee is clear on that and that Pam
Right,
and
you
I
have
are
to make a
recording
choice.
it.
You got to go one or the other. It's not, yeah, I get it. Yes.
It may come out at reconciliation, but anyway.
Okay, so yeah, I mean that's why I mean, so you're kind of suggesting the same thing that I'm suggesting, that there isn't, that these are going to be taken up as not tranches necessarily, but as separate projects. Is that what you're suggesting? So we might as well just say we want all of tier 1 in, we want Wheaton Regional Park improvements of 1.9 million from tier 2 in, and we want to put Blair High School field renovations and lights at 1.5 million in. That's what, Ms. Beck, you're not suggesting we do that, but you're suggesting if we wanted to move in the direction that we've suggested, that would be the way in which it was done.
Well, I think that's not consistent with what we just did, though, in the previous one where we had language that we said these things we definitely are saying should be in. This is if we'd like to see it in, if possible. I mean, there was a distinction there.
Yeah,
so.
the only difference, I mean, yes, that's true. I guess the only difference in the other would be we could put into the capital budget as two separate items, 3.5 million and 0.98 million for PLAR, so that if something needed to be cut, you could cut the 0.98, but you wouldn't have to cut all of PLAR out. I mean, that would be functionally that would be the difference there. We could have just put in all of PLAR.
All right. So
again, I'm for putting in tiers 1, 2, and 3. So I will.
And you will personally pay for all of that. Okay. So we could make tier 1 bigger by adding in the Wheaton Regional to staff's recommendation, which adds Blair. And you know, we don't know if we can get all of that in. I think I'd be okay with putting that in as tier 1 and then including everything else on a standby list. You know, I think I hear what Mary Beck is saying, which is that they're going to add it in and try to make the numbers work. And so if we put it in, they will try to make it work. They will not try to make the standby list work. You know, that's not going to go in. So I think that's what I'm hearing is you know, that's kind of the procedural difference, is that if we recommend it, they will put it in there, they will try to make it work. If they can't make it work in the end, then they will, you know, they go to the council president, and they in turn comes through the council as to, we couldn't, you know, there's a shortage. What's going to come out? So tier 2 will not, you know, have that opportunity to be in first. So under that, you know, I think it makes some sense to try to get some Wheaton Regional money in there, and acknowledging that we're not pushing in a lot of funding. I mean, there's a lot that's not going in.
Can I make a suggestion, notwithstanding, you know, neither of us are putting in our own money for this. And so Wheaton Regional Park improvements is separated into tiers. I think what Ms. Beck is suggesting is, if we're going to take all of it, why don't we just put forward 2.9 million for Wheaton Regional Park improvements? If we're not doing, you know,
yeah, well,
rather than separating that out into two separate
is,
items, it's not two separate items.
Well, right.
Yeah,
well,
that's
correct.
That's what he's saying, I think.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying we're going to put on the list, you know, Brookside Gardens Master Plan, 2.9 million for Wheaton Regional, the cricket field, and Blair. And that goes forward as the committee's recommendation. And then we you know, nod to reality here that everything else is going to be on kind of a standby list. That is not, you know, they won't try to reconcile that at first. If somehow additional capacity is available, we might be able to get it in there, but they're not going to try to reconcile the budget from the beginning. with that funding in there.
Yes, and I'm fine with that.
So
That if that's where we're headed, then I will support it.
okay.
And we won't send you the bill for the Blair High School.
I could pay, I would. All right. All right.
So I think that covers everything. I just want to, one final little thing, I just want to ensure how this would still impact the delay to Ovid Hayes and Wells, because you did get the letter from Councilmember Rice requesting attention to the cricket delay, field delay, and the Ovid Hayes and Wells delay. Certainly Tier 1 takes care of the cricket field delay. The Ovid Hayes and Wells wasn't really mentioned in the letter from the board, but called planning and found that if 3 tiers were restored, then that delay would not occur. And what you've just done, I'm not sure how it impacts that delay, and I'm not actually sure how a delay changes the funding. It obviously doesn't change overall funding, it just shifts it from one year to the other. So it possibly doesn't hit the target that the county exec had per year under the reconciliation PDF, but it doesn't add money. So I want to be able to have some recommendation or close the loop on that for Councilmember Rice, what the decision is with regard to Ovid Hayes and Wells.
Okay, can you say that again? Can you just summarize that again, and let's hear from the planning board.
As part of meeting the reconciliation PDF, part of the plan by the Parks Department was to delay some funding for Ovid Hayes and Wells, $580,000 from FY25 into FY26. Okay, so it didn't cut the funding for it, but it delays it by 1 year.
If you want to, I'm sorry, if I could just get just briefly, if you want to push, if you think you're going to want to push Ovid Hayes and Wells back in and stop that delay, please put it on the reconciliation list, because otherwise the full council may try to bump something else out in order to make room for it. So I implore you, if you're going to do that, let's do it now and put it on the reconciliation list as part of your priority.
Yeah, I mean, the full council would only presumably add it, not remove something else, because that's the way the process works here. But
so my understanding about Ovid Hayes and Wells is it's a large standalone, and some funds have been shifted from 1 year to another for affordability purposes. But the start and end date of the project is not really consequentially impacted. So I think Ovid Hayes and Wells is okay.
So you're saying it's not actually a delay.
In the grand scheme of things, between start, maybe 3 months from start to end of construction or something like that. But it's the real schedule, trust me, will be more driven by our ability to get all our permits and entitlements. We're in a design phase right now, than it will be by the expenditure schedule on the PDF.
So to close the loop, we're accepting the affordability recommendation for Ovid Hayes and Wells, partially because we don't think that it's going to have a material impact on the delivery. It will be only a matter of months. But if staff is requesting that we have something to close the loop, just like we've had to accept other things that we didn't want, we'd be accepting the affordability recommendation there. Just to be clear, just like we're accepting 5.7 million out of Wheaton Regional Park improvements, we're effectively Northwest Branch. There are a number of different things that left to our preferences, we would fund them all.
While noting that in this case, due to project timing, we anticipate the delay is actually only a couple months.
Okay, that's great. I can write that up. Thank you.
Okay. So
I think that covers us. I think we are done with the Parks CIP.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to the next item, the Rec Department CIP. Oh, Councilmember Friesen, did you want to share anything additional?
No, that's fine. We spent enough time.
Okay. All right. Okay. Welcome, Wreck Department, Vivian Yao.
You want me to just leap in?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Okay, for the fiscal year 23 to 28 CIP period, the executive is recommending a total of 8 ongoing and 2 new recreation projects totaling $97.4 million for the recreation CIP. It's a decrease of $41.1 million or 29.7% from the amended fiscal year 21 to 26 program. The decrease is primarily due to the substantial progress on the South County Regional Recreation and Aquatic Center. And that decrease is partially offset by cost increases for the Kennedy Shriver Aquatic Center project, the new Holiday Park Net Zero initiative, and then the addition of funding in fiscal years 27 and 28 for the recreation facilities refurbishment level of effort project. The PHED committee will review 7 projects with recommended funding during the 6-year period, and those are listed in the table on page 2 of your packet. Council staff notes that the North Bethesda Community Recreation Center does not have funding program during the 6-year period. The Kid Museum will be closed out and excess funding will be removed because the organization is being supported in the operating budget. And the project funding and unused project balance in the recreation facility modernization project has been shifted to the recreation facilities refurbishment project. So just on page 3 of your packet is a table that shows the operating budget impacts that are actually summarized in the PDFs. So there's 2 that are noted for the Holiday Park Net Zero initiative, which is the new project. There are anticipated cost savings because of the energy efficiencies in that project. And then South County Regional Recreation Aquatic Center will have operating budget impact once it is completed and comes online. The facility planning and facility site selection CIP projects include some recreation related projects. The facility planning MCG project has studies for Bethesda Regional Community Recreation Center, Clarksburg Regional Recreation Center, and Poolsville Community Facility. And this facility site selection MCG project lists North County Regional Recreation and Aquatic Center as a candidate project. I see that Councilmember Friesen has his hand up, so I will stop.
Okay, Councilmember Friesen.
Yeah, thanks. I just quickly, first of all, wanted to thank the executive branch for particularly the Poolsville project and the Bethesda project, including that in there. I think it's really important. We've had a lot of meetings and conversations, a lot of community engagement on both of those issues. There's real need in both. I was just hoping if briefly you could just talk quickly about the timing and the plans for those 2 projects in particular. I know a lot of work has gone into both of those, a lot of planning.
I'll let Greg speak to especially the Poolsville one. I know he's been working on that.
Sure. Vivian, I wasn't sure if you wanted us to tackle that now, or but happy to do so. Councilmember Friesen, I'll start with Poolsville. It's included in our facility planning. The executive received a white paper from the town of Poolsville, which refined in greater detail their essentially a wish list of components that would make up this facility. We are set to commence with a program of requirements process this summer, and are funded in the facility planning budget that Vivian alluded to. We are putting together an architect for that effort, and it'll be led by DGS through our Office of Planning and Development. And we will work with the town and other stakeholders to refine their white paper and turn it into a program of requirements document that we would use for design of the facility. Moreover, MCPS, as you know, has been working on the design of the Poolsville High School and has been gracious enough to include a piece of ground for us in case it is determined that that is the best location for this Poolsville community use facility. So not quite there yet. Obviously, we need to do the POR first, but we do have a piece of ground that MCPS has incorporated into their high school design. So we will get to site selection at some point later in fiscal 23. But suffice to say, we have hit the start button and are off and running with that project. As it relates to the North Bethesda Community Center, I think that was the other one that you inquired about.
Well, that one too, but I was mentioning Bethesda as part of this conversation. But
right. So, yeah, sorry, not North Bethesda. As you know, from time to time, there have been conversations with the development community who are pursuing projects in Bethesda and the CBD. And over the years, we've had a lot of conversations with folks who are doing projects and potentially incorporating this rec facility in their projects or as part of their project. And so the intent of having it in facility planning allows us, DGS and Recreation, to coordinate those discussions when they come up. And then if we believe, if the executive believes that we have a good location, a suitable scenario, we can pursue it through facility planning until it becomes a standalone project. And so I think you're familiar with the most recent conversations of where these things might go. But as they pop up as different projects move forward. So that's the idea behind for Bethesda.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks for all the work on that. Related to Poolsville, the POR is no small feat and a big step in the right direction as far as the community is concerned. So just wanted to highlight that. And it's no small feat to have the county government and school system working together and at least have a verbal agreement that should that be the best site, that would be an opportunity to move forward. So that's very significant. A community that the data demonstrates needs a facility there, and I appreciate the fact that you're moving forward, and appreciate all of your work. Trying to figure out a way to make Bethesda move forward as well as that redevelopment is taking place. Now is the time for that, and certainly there are needs there as well, and we need to have public facilities that residents can access in all areas of the county. So I really appreciate that, and thanks for the update.
Okay.
Okay, so moving forward, just want to note that several individuals testified on behalf of the Recreation CIP. In terms of reviewing projects, we have projects with construction funding in fiscal year 23 or 24 up first. The first one is South County Regional Recreation and Aquatic Center. The total recommended amount for the project is $72.072 million and $5,773,000 for the 6-year period. There's no cost change from the approved fiscal year 21 to 26 project, and there's no appropriation requested in fiscal years 23 or 24. The project schedule is the project's supposed to be completed in anticipated to be completed in mid 2023. The operating budget impact reflected in the fiscal year 23. For fiscal year 23 in the PDF is $2.197 million and a full year cost of $2.950 million, with anticipated annual revenues of approximately $460,000. Executive staff is working on finalizing these operating budget assumptions for the fiscal year 23 operating budget. Council staff recommends approval as proposed by the county executive. This particular facility would be really important to complete because it will it'll add capacity as we are going to be, working on other aquatics facilities in the county.
Okay.
Okay. The next project is Martin Luther King Jr. Indoor Swim Center renovation. The recommended funding for the project is $13,472,000. The total 6-year amount is $4.019 million. There is no requested fiscal year 23 to 24 appropriation, and there no cost change as well. The project provides for upgrades or replacement of entire building systems that are at the end of their useful life. So far, the work that's been completed in the project includes replacement of HVAC, electrical, pool filtration, fire alarm, and mass evacuation systems and roof replacement. The remaining work includes the complete replacement of the pool deck and the underground drainage system. The pool deck replacement is needed to make the pool ADA compliant. The construction will require the facility to be closed and will be scheduled based on use and priority of programmatic needs for the department. The committee may want to get additional information about the estimated length of time that the facility will need to be closed for construction and when DGS and Recreation will have a better idea of when this happens. So council staff recommends concurring with the executive. However, the committee may want to ask for some notice in writing before facility closure so that, we can anticipate questions and communicate with potentially affected constituents.
Yeah, what's the plan there, Greg or Robin? Thank you. Welcome.
In terms of the construction itself, we don't have a definitive handle on how long the work is going to take. I'll defer to Director Riley on how they triage the closure of facilities for lengths of time and how that's been worked out. But as Vivian mentioned, during the pandemic, we completed as much work as we possibly could with the building systems and the restrooms, and it's really everything except the pool deck and the underlying filtration piece of that, because that is a much more involved project, and we couldn't have a definitive timeline on the length of shuttering the entire facility, and that's what it will require. Of course, when the aquatic centers are closed, they're in. We look at with Recreation, we look at the comprehensive county-wide aquatic center inventory to ensure that closure of one while relying on another is synced. So with that, I'll ask Director Riley to put a finer point on it.
And I'll ask Melanie Saucier, Division Chief, to jump in also. But yeah, it's a delicate dance. And I think DGS did a remarkable job in expediting a lot of the work at MLK. And it does look really amazing. They did a significant amount of work in a really short period of time. As Greg identified, there's really no timeline right now on it. We're really hoping that we can get a Silver Spring building open so that the load can be shared down there, and that customers will have a place to go. We recognize that seniors rely on us, high school swim teams rely on us, swim lessons. And so we will do a delicate timing around when we have the outdoor pools available and when the Silver Spring building is open to us. That's sort of our plan right now, because it will take some work to dig up the deck and change the ADA compliance about slope. So that will take a significant amount of work. So we're going to schedule it very, very delicately, and we'll absolutely let council know well in advance of when that work will be scheduled.
Okay. Councilman Dwana.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This is one of my kids' favorite places, so it's good to know. I appreciate the work that's been done. You know how much use it gets from that part of the East County community. So just to press a little further, once you close it, whenever that is, how long will it take to do what you need to do?
Melanie, if you're on here,
I can answer that one. So we don't have the full time frame. Some of the numbers there are some of the lengths of time that were thrown out for the total deck replacement and the piping that goes underneath of it, because it is the drains that go from the deck out, was anywhere from 6 to 8 months. So we have kind of push that back a little bit. And when we get there, when we're ready to do that, we will try to do it so that we can, possibly start the project in April, open up the outdoor pool, get that going as quickly as we can. Silver Spring hopefully will be open and running so that we can divert some of the attention there. And as part of the KSAC project that is going on, they have also installed a heater at the Glenmont outdoor pool, and we're hoping to continue to weatherproof the, I don't want to say weatherproof, but make it more amenable, the locker room, so that we can actually run that facility longer to help take some of the burden and pressure off when we do have to keep closing down our facilities as they are getting older for repairs. So we're looking anywhere from 6 to 8 months when we finally close MLK down to get that work done.
Councilmember Jawanda, I'd also add that we're talking about a pool deck and the underlying filtration and piping underneath of it. And so trying to thread the needle between the seasons and those things, it will take a lot of careful consideration, because once you start these projects, you can't stop and reassess. You just kind of have to go. And we want to know as much about what we're going to run into during these projects as we possibly can, so that we're not bringing up the pool deck and running into something that we weren't aware of and those types of things. And while those types of issues happen with all projects, we want to be as smart as we possibly can in advance, so that when we commit to a timeline with the Department of Recreation, and more importantly to the community, that we can reasonably believe that we're going to meet that timeline, rather than saying we're going to be closed for the summer and then everything will be groovy in the fall and then it not occur. And that is something that we are desperately trying to avoid. And we will take the steps to ensure that when announcements and closures are put out into the community, that we feel very good and that we can meet those timeframes.
I appreciate that. And I think that I agree. That's the prudent approach to, keep it open until you know exactly how long what you're going to need, and then give a lot of notice. I appreciate the hopes of Silver Spring and the Glenmont heater, that as potential, overloads. One thing to consider down the line, I've thought about this in the past, of particularly in this part of the county where this one is, and this could work in other parts too. Calverton is right there. If we ever work with Prince George's County, and we could be a reciprocal relationship, when they do maintenance, to allow for people to use those facilities and to kind of formalize that. So when they do shut down, if it's going to be a year or whatever, that we say, hey, we've got these 3 things as options, and maybe that could be one of them. So that's just something to.
We have done that in the past.
Yeah,
we have helped Prince George's out.
Yeah, so they'll be very open to reciprocating to our pass holders to go back over to Fairlands. You're correct.
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right. Yeah, because Fairland's a nice, that's a nice center. It's right there. So, okay, good. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, so the next project is a new project. It's the Holiday Park Net Zero Initiative. What's recommended in the 6-year period and total for the project is $3,079,000. The recommended funding source is GO bonds. Fiscal year 23 recommended request is $104,000, and the fiscal year 24 appropriation request is $2.975 million. This project provides for the design and construction of an improved building facade, which includes window replacement and a new building exterior for the Holiday Park Senior Center. The project the scope is for energy efficiency net zero improvements. So there are no other improvements to the senior center that are contemplated in this project. While DGS and Recreation will work together to manage, to complete the work in phases, they do anticipate some program impact. Council staff recommends concurring with the executive.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds like a good project. We'll need you to find alternatives during the program impact period and keep us posted. Okay.
Okay. The next project is the Kennedy Shriver Aquatic Center Building Envelope Improvement Project. The CE is recommended recommending $32.644 million total for the project and $31.299 million during the 6-year period. The recommended funding source is GO bonds. The fiscal year 23 appropriation request is $3.438 million, and the estimated fiscal year 24 appropriation is $830,000. The cost change from the approved fiscal year 21 to 26 project is $4.355 million. The project addresses problems in this aquatic center related to the movement and condensation of moist indoor air through the building's exterior masonry walls and roof leakage throughout the building. There are also going to be some additional work related to refurbishment of the facility and replacing systems that have reached their useful life. The construction activities in fiscal year 23 will include facade improvements, replacement of windows, and installation of energy efficient equipment. Construction and site utilities are scheduled to begin in fiscal year 24, and the department is tentatively planning to take the pool offline in fiscal year 25. The cost increase is due to energy efficiencies targeted in achieving net zero, and the refurbishment elements will be supported through the recreation facilities refurbishment project that the committee will review in just a little bit. Although the list of refurbishment tasks did not make it into the packet when it was published, we did get information from the executive about those, and I will update the packet to include that information. If the committee is interested in seeing the list of what's being planned, I'm happy to share my screen so you can see that. Otherwise, council staff recommends concurring with the executive.
All right. I think we can probably just concur. Okay.
Okay. The next item is the swimming pool slide replacement project. The recommended appropriation is $12.795 million. There's no cost change from the fiscal year 21 to 26 approved project. The requested fiscal year 23 appropriation is $1.503 million. The estimated fiscal year 24 appropriation is $1.541 million. This is a level of effort project to make sure that there's a process to ensure safe pool operations through the repair and replacement of slides. The recommended replacement schedule is included in your packet that goes from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 30, and basically it goes through Upper County Outdoor Pool, Wheaton Glenmont, Germantown, Kennedy Shriver, Martin Luther King Jr. Outdoor, Bethesda Outdoor, Long Branch Outdoor, and Germantown Indoor Swim Center. The outdoor pools will be replaced during the off season.
Okay.
Council staff recommends concurring.
Sounds good.
Okay. So there's two projects that have planning funding in fiscal year 23. The first one is recreation facilities refurbishment. The recommended funding for the 6-year period is $32.217 million, and for the 6-year period, $30.217 million. This is a $13.217 million increase over the approved fiscal year 21 to 26 project. The recommended appropriation request is $1.167 million, and the estimated fiscal year 22 appropriation is $3 million. Council staff notes that all of the funding that's showing in the PDF is for planning, design, and supervision. This level of effort project provides for a structured process to ensure that all recreation facilities are refurbished through repair or replacement of facility components. The schedule that council staff had requested a schedule for how these facilities were going to be taken care of in the PDF. And while we didn't get information in time for the packet publication, executive staff did forward information about their plans for scheduling refurbishment projects. So I am going to share my screen so that you can see some of that information. At least I'm going to try and do that. Or in the alternative, if it doesn't quite work out, I'll just explain what they have provided. So what they've explained is that in fiscal year 22, there's going to be Caulfield Phase 1 renovations that are going to that will happen, and then fiscal year 23, Holiday Park Senior Center. Fiscal year 24 will be Damascus Senior Center. Fiscal year 25 will be the KSAC. Fiscal year 26, Bauer Drive. 27 would be Margaret Schweinhout Senior Center, and then 28 is Upper County Community Recreation Center. There is information about what will be, how DGS will address the Caulfield and Long Branch community centers, which were used temporarily as homeless shelters. And because they are now the homeless shelter, the emergency homeless shelter will be coming online, well, really any day now. There is work that's needed to repair and renovate those facilities. So I want to
thank you for, I want to find out what the plan is there. Yeah. Great.
I think I'll turn it over to executive staff to walk you through those things.
Sure. So I'll lead off, and then I'll turn it over to Director Riley and Melanie. But as you all know, that we will be doing an opening of the Neville Street shelter on March 5th. Ceremony is at 1 o'clock, and hopefully you've all received your invites. Presumably you have, and people will start to move to Neville on March 7th, Monday, March 7th. So as folks are, well, starting with Long Branch, as the men are moved from Long Branch to Neville Street, DGS and Rec will immediately follow in behind with both facility work and other work that the two departments are completing as part of the refresh to get it ready for the community. Same thing will happen at Caulfield as the women's shelter moves from Caulfield to a new facility at Crabs Branch, which requires the vacating of the men. Crabs Branch moved over to Neville. We will again immediately follow in behind them at Caulfield, get that facility up and running, and turn back over to the community. In terms of the type of work that we're doing, DFM facilities team has already started a lot of the work that they could get in there and do while the building is actually occupied. But some of the work, and I'll let Melanie and Robin discuss this, the Rec will do, will require no one to be in the facility, and so we'll need to wait until we actually relocate folks. But that sequence of events commences on Monday, so we will keep you apprised and informed along the way. But at this point, we are 99% there in terms of confidence that we'll have people moving into Neville Street on Monday morning.
Yeah,
Monday morning, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think Greg identified it pretty well. I mean, DGS has done some significant work already in both buildings, replacing ceiling tiles. The cue is to paint both the interior of both facilities, do carpet, do hard surfaces. The longest portion of time is going to be to strip down each of the gym floors and repaint the lines and then resurface them, and that can take about 3 to 4 weeks. We've got some other repairs to do to bleachers, some backboards that need some work on them. So we're looking at a timeline around May to get back in and begin operations. We've already ordered furniture, game tables, materials and supplies. So I think we're queued up and planning to open sometime in May and run summer programs at both sites.
Is it going to be better than before?
It will be better than when we closed. Yes.
Better than when you closed?
Yes.
There'll be new equipment?
Yeah, new pool tables, new ping pong tables, new furniture, all new paint. There's going to be some carpentry work at the front counters. Caulfield has some ADA work in the bathrooms that needs to be done. But I think DGS and us have been working really collaboratively to schedule and queue everything up. And I think we have a good plan in place.
Well, I mean, I guess I would like to know if there aren't any enhancements that we could provide to show appreciation for the fact that they were shut down for so long.
Yeah, we're working really hard with both communities. We've had a couple town hall meetings to communicate with them, and then we're working on some of the same things we did last summer, where we had the outdoor pool at Long Branch to be available to the community for free. Both summer camps that are going to be at both sites are going to be very on-site registration for that specific community at a very low cost. It's going to be, I think, $25 for a 6-week camp. And we're working with Adventist Community Health to add some enrichment programs to that, to both to Long Branch, and we're adding some STEM and art contractors to the Caulfield summer camp as well. We're working very collaboratively with Cheers and both communities to sort of enhance some of the programming there and make sure we're coming back stronger than when we left.
So you're going to have full-scale summer camp programs as a starter.
Yes.
Good. How many kids are you going to be able to serve?
Right now we're working with 80 as an open registration, but we're also working with linkages to make sure any students that need help get in there so we can maximize at 100.
100.
Now we do have summer school happening at the same time. So,
at the schools.
At the schools. And we're doing some programs there at New Hampshire Estates with some wraparound programs there as well. So, while students can come to school from 8 to 12:30 or 1, we're going to come in with our food, fun, and fitness program from 1 to 6:30 at the two sites that wrap around Long Branch and some of the areas around Caulfield as well.
Okay. All right. Any comments here? No.
Just say that's good updates. Glad to hear that, and on all fronts for our shelter and for the centers. So it took longer than we all wanted, but glad it's happening. Respect.
Just one thing. We will work with Vivian. She noticed something that made us realize we hadn't properly allocated costs between construction and PD&S, but we'll get that fixed up so that it's available for full council. It's just a technical issue.
And hopefully we can get language again that describes which projects at least are scheduled in the near term. I guess I did have one question though, because the information just came over. So Caulfield was originally, one of those kind of in the queue for a modernization project. And so at the committee's request, we identified the center as being a high priority for refurbishment. And I didn't know if Executive Cip has, in collaboration or in communication with the community, decided that, that the phase 1 would be sufficient for the community without doing that refurbishment work.
Yeah, great question, Vivian. Yes, we have worked really closely with both communities for the last year, and there was a lot of enriching discussion about the fear of getting the building back, but then having it closed for another 12 to 18 months. And so there was a lot of discussion, could we kind of delay it a little bit and make sure that we were doing a lot of community meetings about some of the pieces that they wanted to see in terms of changes without changing the footprint of the building. Were there things inside in terms of a scope that they wanted to have changed as part of the long-term project? So we're working closely with Caulfield, or especially around the history. and capturing that. I know that's been on the radar for a long time. And so that's definitely a part of the long-term piece of making sure we get exactly what the community wants in that facility.
Is the schedule that, that was just provided, I mean, is there then room to interject Caulfield in there because if this is kind of the 6-year period and, sure, they would like something before then, how would that work?
To talk to Mary and Rich or Greg on that one. I mean, I think what we had hoped to do is make sure we're doing facility assessments to really determine some of the infrastructure needs and what the scope of the buildings are and the repairs. And I'll toss to Greg and if I'm off base on that, but I think if we could fit it, that would be great. I just don't know that, once we get inside and determine how much infrastructure work needs to be done in terms of the buildings, whether there is capacity.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Using our experiences with the library refreshes as the lessons learned, we are now conducting facility assessments, pretty robust facility assessments in advance of any of these, what we're referring to as refurbishments, to determine whether or not they are in fact full-scale renovations and not just aesthetic improvements and operational improvements. So we have provided, and staff can provide the schedule and the fiscal years where we think that these facilities will happen. We may need to reshuffle the deck, however, depending on whether or not, once we get these facility assessments done. We've had to do that with the libraries. We've had to shuffle things just due to affordability, but also timelines. And so we want to be equitable in terms of which facilities are closed and for how long, where they are, which communities they provide services for, and then, of course, the timelines associated with all of that, and then finally the cost. So I suspect the committee will see us again on this effort long before we actually have a definitive schedule and can reasonably stick to it and give you a level of assurance that this is going to be the order of projects.
Okay. All right. Thank you for following up on that. All right.
Okay.
Vivian?
So the last project is the Wall Park Garage and Park Improvements Project. The recommended CIP project funding is pretty much the same as it was in the approved fiscal year 21 to 26 project, except for it shifts funding back an additional year. Executive staff suggests that the schedule has been adjusted to reflect anticipated developer delays. Council staff notes that the county does have, an option to purchase additional parking spaces if they are needed for a future regional recreation center, and that option goes away after December of 2026.
Councilor Friedson.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm familiar with the project. Obviously, we've had a lot of conversations. I just wanted to ask to be reiterated for the public, since there's a lot of community buy-in to Wall Park and to these efforts, that the move in the budget here is reflecting the executive branch's best understanding of where things are, and that should things move forward in the private sector, that executive branch would be able to move things forward and reflect that as soon as they're needed and as soon as the private sector moves. Is that fair?
That's a fair assessment. As we put together these projects and submit them, a lot longer before you actually see them at committee. So we understand that there is some news with the Gables project and a change in ownership and perhaps even a change in use that will change the timeline. So I suspect that we will be back to you with a reshuffling of this particular CIP project at some point once we receive a little bit more detail about the successors to the Gables project.
Yeah, thanks. But the key point here, I just wanted to make sure everybody understands, is there's no departure by the executive branch here on the commitment for us to be able to deliver Wall Park. It's a question of, this was a complicated public-private dynamic, and the private sector has to move before the park can move forward, and the delay here is just a reflection on where the timing appears to be at the current moment, to the best of executive branch's understanding.
That's right. We've met with the contract purchaser, and there is no change in the delivery of Wall Park as part of this CIP project. That's ultimately the deliverable as part of this project. The parking, of course, going from a residential to a commercial use, Gables being the residential project, and that going to something else through a change in use, we'll need to reevaluate the parking associated with that, which obviously is a critical path item to get to the Wall Park Civic Green. So no change in the game plan. It's just a matter of understanding the details, understanding the ownership, their timing, which I understand is a fairly aggressive timeline. So I suspect we'll be back to the committee at some point, either this spring or before summer recess, to update the council on this project generally.
Sounds good. I appreciate that, and look forward to moving forward with Wall Park in particular, which is a key public amenity that the community has been engaged in and interested in for quite some time. And there's some other exciting private sector opportunities here, largely related to growth in bio that I'm excited to see move forward as well. So thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, and the last item is just an update regarding the shared agency booking system replacement project. Basically, the software.
Vivian, we've got mere moments left. Unfortunately, there's a hard stop. If this is a quick one, we can get through it, and then we can be done with this item.
All I wanted to say is the software went live for Recreation and Parks, but CUF has been delayed because limitations in the software. That will go live hopefully on May 1st.
May 1st for the rec. Okay.
For CUF.
For CUF. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Director Riley, for responding to me over the weekend about that. Much appreciated. Okay.
Sure.
That's it for rec.
Councilman Friedson.
Yeah, if we have to hop off here, I understand there might be a cutoff at 12:20, but I just request that the ag item be put first in a future agenda so that they don't have to wait and potentially not get to them. So I just wanted to make that friendly request of the chair here.
Absolutely. All right. Sorry we couldn't get to that item. Okay, so here we have the rec. Without objection, the budget approved, recommended. Okay. And I'm sorry we couldn't get to the ag item today, but we will take it up very soon. All right, everyone. That concludes our work for the day. Thank you very much.
The attention. His birth mom rejected him and would not feed him, which for him then caused an attachment problem. Kingston is our 17.3